Paulie, obviously you mentioned there obviously how you built up your relationship with James. His last two, well, his one was against Torax, where he lost the world title and then he won the world title. There weren't performances that we've seen where James has been at his best. You know, why do you think that is?
Age a little bit catches up to you, obviously. Sometimes you find a little less things to find your motivation. And also, I thought the rematch with Truax was ruined when Robert Byrd called the cut from a punch instead of a headbutt. I thought that was a poor decision by the referee, and it kind of conditioned James for the remainder of the fight now to kind of rush his work because he kind of felt like he couldn't afford the fight to be stopped, and he had to put in the work. And it's tough, you can't see anything, and you're trying to win rounds, and you're trying to put yourself in harm's way despite you not being able to see anything. So I think the call of Robert Byrd's call and the rematch on where that cut came from, I think it kind of ruined my ability and everybody else's ability to really judge James' performance correctly and adequately, because you kind of had to throw everything away at that point and kind of just try to win any way you could, So I thought it was unfair, really. And, it's strange because I told James I wanted to see a good performance. Otherwise, I would tell him directly, like, this can't be for you. But once Byrd made that call, he kind of ruined the entire ability to judge that performance, because now you've conditioned so much that, you can't adequately make an opinion based on the circumstances that were put forth, I mean, I was very disappointed with the referee job that fight, because I thought Byrd was started out the fight giving plenty of warnings for headbutts, and then he sees a cut and he says it's from a punch. Sometimes common sense has to rule over. If you're giving constant warnings for headbutts, I don't know where you saw a punch that didn't exist. But we got through it, and that was fortunate enough of us. But I think it didn't adequately allow everybody in James' camp to really judge James to where he's at, and it was also James' shoulders also getting better and better. He hasn't been good in a while, but it's getting better and better. And when I saw him in Miami in December, I saw a good bounce to his step. I saw good combinations flowing out. So I said, you look healthy to me, man. I said, you look in good shape considering we're just in December, He said, yeah, the fight got pushed back a little bit here and there, so I was already kind of in training. But he changed the way he conditioned himself a little bit, less running and do more conditioning with other things, and I felt like, James' legs were looking really good in camp, even back in December, better than they had at any point I had seen in the Truax camp, So I think that really helps out, and it also allows you to kind of be more creative with your offense. It allows you to be able to dictate more things inside the ring, and I thought he was rather creative with his combinations as well. His shoulder is good, so I really look forward to this fight. Because I think it's going to be a James DeGale that people haven't seen in quite some time. I'm not, you can't turn back time. Time only goes forward. But I do think James is better than the DeGale people have seen in the last two fights, and I think that I don't think he's slipped that much yet. And I think next Saturday night people will come to that realization.
Chris Eubank Jr., I was with him 2 days ago in the gym. The two times he stepped up against Billy Joe Saunders, obviously he was a lot younger then, and George Groves, more specifically George Groves, he lost that quite unanimously in everyone's eyes. What do you make of Chris Eubank Jr., first of all?
I think Eubank Jr. is a very proud fighter, a very mentally strong fighter. He's got a kind of a late start in boxing, so he doesn't have the pedigree that some of these guys have, but he makes up for it. He has the pedigree in terms of the name recognition. He has the pedigree in terms of the Eubank name. But in terms of having the actual boxing experience, he doesn't have the boxing experience that guys like Groves, Saunders, or even DeGale have had. So the amateur careers and whatnot. So I do think that does go a long way. It doesn't mean that Eubank doesn't have the potential to improve or learn, but sometimes you probably should have started sooner or younger. Having said that, DeGale Eubank makes up for it with a lot of mental strength. He really takes that man approach in there, where you're not going to break him. He's going to fold you before you fold him, and he really I think has a lot of pride in that way. So I don't think you can make it that kind of fight with Eubank. I don't know that Eubank is the kind of guy you want to try to fight head on in terms of a machismo, I'm more man than you kind of fight. We saw Abner Yildirim try that. Abner Yildirim was a guy who I saw walking through many guys in the Miami gym, just be outmanning them, just being more man than them, and kind of walking them down. And when Eubank got to him, he smoked them. So I think that's kind of the fight that Eubank is best at, because he doesn't have to show the lack of pedigree. Won't really show there because he's just going to kind of be a man about it. Even the Spike O'Sullivan fight, I remember, he's just kind of going to Spike and he's being more man than him. He's trying to be anyway, and he's trying to win the fight by basically just overcoming him in an overwhelming fashion. And I think he loves that kind of fight. I think that's the kind of fight that he thrives on. But when you see some tactical input being put in, like with Saunders, who has the pedigree, or even more so with Groves, you see where the deficiencies are. His deficiencies are not mental. He's chasing Groves the whole way. His deficiencies are tactical. You may want to win the fight sometimes, but you have to know how to win the fight sometimes. So we'll see. I do think we're gonna see an improved Eubank. He's brought on a new training team. You would expect them to have worked on many things. So I don't expect like just a tough Eubank. I expect a Eubank with a game plan. But at the same time, I'm confident that if we bring our best James DeGale, then we'll have enough to overcome Eubank.
Chris Eubank obviously brought in, as you referred to, his new trainer, Nate Vasquez, who trains at the Mayweather boxing gym under, and he's learned from Jeff Mayweather, Paulie Mayweather Sr. And when I spoke to Chris on Monday, I said, why now? Why did you need a trainer now? And he said, I felt like I needed it now. But as a fighter, an ex-fighter, do you need a trainer from day one? Do you need someone who can progress you over years?
It's good to have that relationship with a certain trainer. I've had several different trainers. I do think that sometimes you learn everything you can from one, and sometimes you want to move on. I look at somebody like Alexander Usyk. He's training with Lomachenko's father, then he's training with this guy or that guy. And he's always improving. I think there's an advantage to both, but where you lose out on if you constantly change and too much, you lose out on the chemistry in the corner, especially on fight night. If you're with a trainer for a certain amount of time or for a certain duration of time, that trainer knows you not just physically from a tactical perspective, but he also knows you mentally and the kind of person you are, the kind of man you are, and it kind of sometimes the adjustments and the instructions in the corner can vary because he may know you a little better, as opposed to just a guy you bring in just as a Johnny come lately who will just know the tactics and may help you, but from a psychological standpoint may not know you as much. So yeah, I think it probably helps Chris having a set trainer this time. It probably makes him a little better. I wouldn't expect James DeGale to prepare for anything but the best Chris Eubank, and that's what we've done.
James has put pressure on himself and he said, this is a retirement fight. If I can't beat Chris Eubank Jr., that's it for me. Would you agree?
I think when we reach a certain age, that's how we all push ourselves, because when you're young, you're just pushing yourself to greatness. When you're older, you've kind of achieved what you're going to achieve, and you're just pushing yourself to keep going, and just don't let the dream end, And so, you're looking for any reasons to motivate yourself, and I think once you get older, the thing that starts hanging over your head is, is it time to hang it up? Is it time to hang it up? So the way you motivate yourself is, I can keep doing it. If I can keep winning, I wouldn't stop. But if I can't keep winning, maybe it's time to stop. So I think it's more of a motivation tactic for James. So it's more of a reason to get up in the morning and train hard and take the approach of passion and not just the approach of this is a job. And I think that's James's way of approaching this in a passionate way, in a passionate manner.